Joining us on the Guadalupe Radio Network is the new president at the University of St. Thomas, the 10th president in the history of the UST. It is Dr. Sinda K. Vanderpool. Dr. Vanderpool, thank you so much for being here at the KSHJ studio. It's great to have you back here in Houston. I know you had grown up here. How exciting it is to be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a joy to be back and looking forward to this conversation.
Sure, absolutely. So I know that you have a background in academia. Had always taken an interest in it, always taken an interest in education. But for people who may not be aware, again, you had grown up in Houston, had gone to Westview Elementary, Lamar High School.
That's right. Pershing Middle School.
Yeah. So at a young
HISD.
right. So at a young age, did you always think to yourself, yeah, I have an interest in education or pursuing something education related, or did that sort of formulate?
Yeah, no, I would say my parents were both always very serious and encouraged us to really dig deeply into learning, and so that was always an orientation I had. I never thought that I would be a professor or something as illustrious as that, but it ended up happening. So yeah.
Very, very good. So, like I said, you were raised here in Houston. You ended up coming into the Catholic Church a little bit later because you were raised as evangelical Protestant. Is that the good way to describe it?
Yeah.
So you were always a person of faith.
That's right. That's right.
I assume your parents also went to church and everything like that.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about then, I guess in that sense, kind of came into the Catholic Church after studying it a while. Was there sort of a connection to academia at all, just being able to kind of that intellectual connection, do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of different threads that led me eventually to become Catholic. I guess it was in 2004 when I became Catholic. So I was always Christian. I got baptized when I was 12, sort of evangelical kind of setting, wonderful church home. We went to church 3 times a week. I read the Bible every day, that kind of thing. But I ended up, after college, falling in love with a Catholic and a recent convert at that. And I actually met him because my dad had his own conversion experience. So my dad and mom always went to a Church of Christ here in Houston, but around the time I was in high school going off to college in North Carolina, Dad started having a sense that he needed to seek something deeper in his spiritual and prayer life, and so started going to different parishes and ended up at St. Vincent de Paul, and he ended up coming into the church as I was going off to college, and then he was an RCIA leader when my husband came into the church, and so the two of them actually knew each other before I met my husband. So I actually met my husband through my father through RCIA at St. Vincent de Paul.
That's so interesting that different people kind of connected in that sense, right? I wouldn't say it was your parents' matchmaking. It's more like God matchmaking, I think, a little bit, isn't it? Right,
I know it sounds suspiciously like an arranged marriage, but it wasn't like that at all, right?
It's beautiful that, like I said, all of that kind of were coming together at the same time, and family members all had that interest in the Catholic Church. I guess then for you, that had kind of grown learning about the Catholic Church. And I'm sure for somebody like yourself who has studied art and Renaissance, I think you studied French literature. I'm sure for you it's been interesting to sort of kind of figure out the connection of the Catholic Church, 2,000 years of tradition.
Exactly.
So I'm sure kind of part of that is then the interest in coming to the University of St. Thomas. Tell me about, again, for this, you've been in academia. You were actually, the previous place you were at was in Calgary, Alberta in Canada as well. So tell me about, what was it about the University of St. Thomas in particular that kind of attracted you and said, there may be something here?
Right. Well, I'd had this, faith journey that's really deeply interwoven with my professional journey, my academic journey, and that sort of thing. So I ended up in graduate school studying somebody who knew a lot of the key players like Martin Luther and John Calvin. She was a contemporary of them, so I ended up doing a lot of deep thinking and engagement with the Catholic intellectual tradition. This woman that I studied, her name was Marguerite de Navarre, and she firmly believed that the Catholic Church probably needed some reform, but it needed to be reformed from within. And that was really a moment of enlightenment. I feel like she was kind of a spiritual guide in this sort of communion of saints kind of thing, as I learned more and more about the church and just what a rich intellectual tradition it is. So that was just kind of connecting back to your previous point about the intellectual part of my journey was definitely very deeply interwoven with both professional and intellectual. And so I think in my life I'd always kind of tried to connect faith and reason together in a way that, in my humble opinion, only comes together as truth and beauty and goodness in the fullness of the Catholic Church, right? So that's what my heart had always been longing for that very thing. And so when I had the opportunity to work at a Catholic university as a Catholic convert, it was very exciting. So I went up to work at this wonderful small institution called St. Mary's University in Calgary, in Canada, and that was the first time I'd been a president of a university. I did that for 3 years, and it was I really see God's hand both in my move initially up to become president at St. Mary's University in Canada, but then also to be drawn back here because I really consider this my home, right? We talked about, I think the place where you learn to drive is the place that is always going to be home, because those are just such formative years, right? Not only elementary school, but all the way through high school. And then even after I graduated from college, my husband and I got married here in Houston, and we lived here for about 3 years before I went to graduate school. So, it's home. And so when I got the call that, the board might be interested in considering me as the next president of the University of St. Thomas. Like, I know the University of St. Thomas, and I'd been watching the University of St. Thomas from afar, from wherever I was working, because it's my hometown. It's the only Catholic university, of course, in this very, very large, vibrant city and huge archdiocese and all of that kind of thing. So I'd always been kind of cheering it on from the sidelines, but I was living up in Calgary. My dad actually fell very ill, and my mom needed me to be with her. And I came down in April, and it was at that exact time, and I think that this is, truly just God's providence, the same day that I arrived in Waco, Texas, from Calgary, Alberta. That's the same day that somebody had recommended me as a possibility for this job. And so right at the same time that I was feeling that my family needs me closer here during these, difficult experiences, I was recommended for this job. So I felt that maybe I was to follow this path, and I did, and it's something that is such a great combination of who I am naturally, because again, I'd been seeking this integration of faith and learning all my life on the campus of the University of St. Thomas. You might know that that our central quad has on one end the beautiful Chapel of St. Basil, and then on the other end the library. So it's like this. And I think that at a Catholic university, like, what better place is there to work towards drawing people in to the beautiful mission of our church, and because the church wants us to always pursue excellence and truly understanding faith and reason in combination. So so hometown, family, plus working at a Catholic university. The University of St. Thomas is larger than the university I was at. So from a professional perspective, it's like, oh, this is a neat opportunity to expand and gain more skills and those kinds of things. So.
Sounds like there's so many providential parts of your life as well. So many parts where God has been at work. It's what a joy to be able to hear about some of that. Again, if you're just now joining us, we're talking with Dr. Sinda K. Vanderpool, the new president of the University of St. Thomas. Dr. Vanderpool, I want to ask you about sort of making the adjustment now. You officially came on board was after Labor Day in September, but I remember them making the announcement that you were the new president back in July. I'm sure it's been a joy and a pleasure to be able to work with all the people there at the university. We recently had earlier this year, we had Father Dempsey come in, who was the interim president. Tell me about working with some of these people like Father Dempsey and kind of getting everything straight and getting adjusted.
Right. Well, yeah, when you're new to a role like this, you rely on those people who've been, holding up the operations at the university. And yeah, I immediately got to know Father Dempsey really well as other members of the team, the finance and facilities and academic folks and all that kind of thing. So yeah, basically in my first 90 days on campus, I feel like my main job is to just listen a lot and to learn from everybody. So I have had my assistant set up. I think we have 21 listening sessions. I think I've done about 12 of them, so I'm a little bit more than halfway through. And I'm just asking people on campus, and these are the faculty members and the staff. What are your hopes and your aspirations for the University of St. Thomas? What do you think our opportunities are on the horizon? What are you most proud of that your department has done or the University of St. Thomas has done more broadly? And then what do you think we could work on? What are areas for growth and improvement and opportunities to move forward in an even better way and to build on what's been done in the past? So I've done a lot of listening, and it's been, like you said, I mean, the word joy is truly part of my day-to-day reality. It's so inspiring to just see all of the pieces of the wonderful things that are going on. So, academic programs, the impact that we're making on students, the great, projects that we have, to expand the campus as far as facilities. I mean, it's just been absolutely a delight. And so I feel like I'm kind of, through these listening sessions, like I'm kind of like laying out the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle and looking at all of them. And then I need to use a lot of very wise counsel in what I've heard and think about how to put them together in a way that makes sense for me, to operate and to move forward and those kinds of things. I do have a lot of the cabinet, the vice president, the people who report directly to the president. Many of them had left the university through attrition and other retirements and that sort of thing. So it is a gift to be able to build my own team. So I have some interim people in place who we're rolling up our sleeves and making the decisions that need to be made. But then the plan is really to build out a permanent team through some key hires, basically. So we're launching some of those in the coming months. So
very good.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of good programs at the University of St. Thomas, not just for undergraduates, but a lot of people look for graduate degrees or furthering their education, looking for programs that can be offered through the University of St. Thomas. So, and I know in previous conversations, you said that sort of the fundamentals of a really great university are there. I mean, the students, the faculty, the staff, the commitment to God and the Catholic faith.
Yes.
Where do you think of the university as it's going? Where are the really the needs for growth? What needs to get better, basically?
Yeah. I think that I've done most of my work as far as higher education in undergraduate education. So I haven't done quite as much work in the graduate space. So I'll talk about the undergrad side first. The university has grown precipitously and very quickly over the past 5 years. And it's been, of course, that's a wonderful thing.
But people may not know that, how fast it's grown in the last 5 years.
It's been incredible, and what a blessing You may be familiar, and I don't know if listeners would know, but there's this phenomenon called the birth dearth going on across the U.S., which basically means that there are fewer students graduating from high school, a lot fewer. There's like a demographic cliff that's happened. And so the fact that we are in the face of those kinds of headwinds, that we're actually growing on the undergraduate enrollment side, says something very positive about the University of St. Thomas. So that's all incredible. What I think needs to be focused on is more shaping of the class. Shaping as far in enrollment, that means thinking about the types of students that you're attracting and which majors they're going into, and thinking about their experience. We have, we reflect the population of Houston, which is such a good and beautiful thing. As far as we have quite a few lower income students. We have a lot of first generation college students, new immigrants and families and first gen families and those kinds of things, which is absolutely wonderful. And we want to continue to serve those populations. We also want to make sure that we're serving really well. I guess to put it in, I don't know how else to say it, but traditional Catholic families. So we have a lot of folks I know in the Houston area and beyond that are homeschooled and go to these classical schools and charter schools and those kinds of things. We want to ensure, and then of course wonderful Catholic schools as well in this area, and we want to be sure that we're serving them well. So the students who have who in their high school preparation have been taking Latin and those kinds of things. We want to make sure that we're attractive to those kinds of students as well. And I think there's been in the recruitment process, there's been less emphasis on that. I'm not saying that we haven't recruited those students and served them, but it hasn't been an emphasis. And so I think sort of just shifting the focus a little bit towards looking at students who come from families who are just poised and ready to read Thomas Aquinas their freshman year, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Which is what they do in our core. So just kind of lifting up the academic quality and the academic engagement in the classroom is something that the faculty have definitely spoken to me about, and it's something that I actually have quite a bit of experience doing. So I'm very excited about that. Mm-hmm. As far as our graduate programs, very excited. Our MFA in creative writing, if you haven't had the director and the personnel from that program on, you definitely should on the radio, because it is really creating. There's no other MFA in creative writing that has a Catholic focus, and so it's really nationally, internationally, even created a community of very bright Catholic writers or aspiring writers coming together and creating this really rich community based off of the great text and the church fathers and those kinds of things. So really, really good and beautiful. So I want to continue to support that. I think that our business school, the enrollments have kind of, my understanding at least, is that our enrollments, the trend of our enrollments have kind of flipped. It used to be that we had a lot more students in our graduate programs, and those numbers have declined while the undergraduate numbers have increased. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested in looking at more deeper integration with the business community here in town and seeing how we might be able to offer, whether it's certificate programs or different types of master's programs, maybe the MBA, but with a certain focus, towards a particular industry. I'm interested in probably growing those graduate business enrollments. I think that's an area just because of where we are, because we're the only Catholic university in Houston. Houston has the second highest number of Fortune 500 companies. It only makes sense that we would be trying to serve the people who are working in all of those industries.
Sure, using the resources around you. That's in the city
exactly.
Of Houston.
So those are probably just some thoughts off the top of my head. We have great master's programs and culture and evangelization that we've launched over the past few years that's attracting a really unique population. So I am, we are, we have these wonderful 19 blocks in the heart of Houston and the Museum District, and at some point we're at capacity, right? As far as we can continue to develop and those kinds of things, but certainly offering more grad programs in a hybrid format and online and those kinds of things to meet the needs of working professionals probably makes sense to me, as opposed to just continuing to radically increase the number of traditional undergraduates, if that makes sense, right?
It does.
Yeah.
And certainly as different people have different needs. You had mentioned the diversity at UST, different people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds that participate in different capacities, again, whether it's a graduate program or going there as an undergraduate. I saw a report I wanted to ask you about UST, Dr. Vanderpool, and that is that the University of St. Thomas ranked #1 in the state of Texas for social mobility. And of course, nationally, UST also ranks among 8th for social mobility.
Yeah.
Explain to me what social mobility is.
Yeah. I mean, the technical answer could definitely be found by looking at the U.S., because that's from U.S. News and World Report. So you could look at their website, and they are fairly transparent about how they calculate those metrics and those kinds of things. But just at a fairly high level, it means that given the number, the volume and the proportion of students that UST attracts and serves who come from socially disadvantaged communities, so that would be students who are Pell eligible, that's a lower income student essentially, and then students who are the first in their families to obtain to seek a college degree. Those are the primary things that they're going to be looking at. So low income, first generation college student. Given the proportion and the number of students in those populations that we serve, you would predict that we would graduate and retain those students, because we serve such a high volume of them, at lower levels than we actually do. So we're outperforming, just putting all the students across the U.S. In a model and looking at, the likelihood of a first-gen low-income student to graduate from university is pretty low, unfortunately. But UST is doing something right, because we're serving those students in ways that help them to thrive. And then we're also helping them get jobs. We have 94% rate of job placement, next steps in your career following your bachelor's degree, and that's something to be really, really proud of. Many even highly ranked schools otherwise strive to attract students from these lower income populations and help them graduate, because you think about a first generation student, a low income student, being the first in their family to go to college. That changes the family dynamics for generations to come, right? It literally changes the trajectory of their family line. I mean, that's a beautiful and powerful thing, and all universities want to be able to do that well, but we're outperforming those metrics better than many other schools in Texas, and then all other schools in Texas according to these metrics, and then number 8 in the nation. So
and I can understand,
really, really powerful. Yeah,
I can understand why you say be proud of it. Of course, again, you being here, being back in the hometown of Houston, being proud of having, again, a lot of these students, many of whom were also from the greater Houston area, being able to get a degree first time in their family. So you really feel like you're contributing, to Houston in general as well. I want to take a step back, and you told me a little bit earlier about your faith nowadays. Now that you're here in town with your husband, going to Mass on campus at the Chapel of St. Basil's. Of course, shout out to Father Eduardo and all the Basilian priests here in the greater Houston area. Tell me, is there anything about the Basilian religious order, the priests there, or kind of their values that you like, that attracted you to it?
Yeah. So I was familiar with the Basilians because they had a pretty big impact across Canada. So I actually learned about them when I was up in Canada, because remember when I lived in Houston, I was actually not a Catholic before.
That's right.
In my previous life. So I really didn't know very much about them here in Houston. No offense to my awesome Basilian archbishop and friends and priest and that sort of thing. So I learned about them and their powerful impact that they've had really throughout the world when I was up in Canada, and then part of the my work in thinking about whether I wanted to pursue this opportunity was to look at their core values and really think about it. It's very their charism, if you will, or those values of knowledge and goodness and discipline, and the value of community as well. But it's knowledge, goodness, and discipline are those three kind of core values. To me, it's such a beautiful thing, that combination of values, because it speaks to, I think, servanthood. It speaks to showing up wherever it is that God has called you to and living out his will and his purpose. So there's a certain really beautiful humility to it. So one of the things that I've learned from Archbishop Miller, who's now returned from Canada.
I was going to say Archbishop Miller used to be the bishop in Vancouver.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And former president at UST.
Yeah.
And he decides, which I'm very excited about, to retire on campus with me. So he's been on our board for a long time, and I'm so grateful. Like, I can't think of a better mentor for me as president of University of St. Thomas than somebody who's served as president and is an esteemed, church leader, and has the remarkable intelligence and wisdom that he has. I can't remember where I was going.
I was going to say that's great. Just like I said, we're so blessed here in Houston to have so many good people, Basilian priests, and to have that here. So very good. Well, I want to round out this interview by Dr. Vanderpool mentioning anything that you want to about the University of St. Thomas, people who want to learn more about the university, explore more about it. What would be your recommendation? Do you guys welcome people to campus to do tours, that kind of thing? Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have a great, recruitment team. We have they're actually called presidential ambassadors. And so they work for the university, or actually volunteer for the university. They're students who are happy to give tours anytime. And I guess one thing I would say, especially to those who live in the Houston area, and are part of the larger Galveston-Houston Archdiocese, is just, this is your Catholic university. And whether or not you have a son or daughter or grandkid or something like that who wants to attend the university or not, we really rely on you to make us even better. So we have great lectures on campus. We have a great drama program. We have My Fair Lady coming up from our theater department. So we would just love to be supported by you as part of the greater Catholic network. I would love for every parishioner. I hear there's about 2 million parishioners in the archdiocese, and if every single one of them felt proud that they had a Catholic not every archdiocese has a Catholic university, right? And I really hope that every parishioner can come away from this conversation and say, wow, that's really cool that we have a great Catholic university in our diocese, and just spreading the word and those kinds of things. So very good. Well, we will encourage all of our listeners and those viewing this via video to continue to pray for the Archdiocese and the mission of the University of St. Thomas as Catholic university here in the greater Houston area, and certainly praying for all the faculty and staff, your transition, as well as all of those students who are discerning, what God wants them to do with their lives, looking at the programs at the University of St. Thomas, trying to figure out what's best for them. So a lot of good reasons, but a lot of good reasons, like you and I agree, to feel joy about where this university is going. So we're so thankful that you are here, taking time out of your busy schedule. Dr. Sinda K. Vanderpool, like I said, I know you and your husband have been busy trying to get settled. The moving, unboxing can be a bit stressful, but we're glad you're here and glad you're able to contribute and back in Houston.